Oh, Sherlock Holmes, you are quite a wonder. What on earth was that? Oh boy, it tickles. Dragon, what on earth is going on?
Yeah. Sorry, Loki. Come here, you. Dang it. I was trying to do a spell and apparently it backfired on me. I wasn't expecting this sort of reaction from a theory that I was doing for the Owl House. Well, Cinnamon, the theory is about lose. Don't get me wrong, I do like Lumity, especially of how far that these two have come. With Amity, she starts to become a little bit more friendlier and stop having to try to focus on other people's expectations and just focus on having good relationships. While with Luz, she feels more confident about herself and feels more loved than she had ever had in the human world. And here's the thing. Luz is bisexual as confirmed by Donna Terrace, and since we are trying to do a proper LGBTQ representation, it would seem right that there should be some mentions, more explorations of how the bisexual romance works, and Luz is a bisexual character, so there has to be some representation for it. So here's the thing that I want to explore. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about the individuality of Luz and Hunter and how they complement each other. I know that right now it's in the early stages, but if you think about how season tides, as well as in the I Was a Teenage Abomination episode, we definitely saw that Luz did the tongue thing when they first started off, and if you remember what happened with Lumity, it built up from there. But anyways, I best get this theory started before continuing on. As a recap about Luz, when she started, she was basically always having a very imaginative spirit and had a tendency to get a little out of control with it. But over time, she begins to have more confidence in her abilities, in loving herself, as well as finding a ways to do magic without having a bile sac attached to her heart. And she really has also matured in a lot of ways in making sure that she doesn't get too reckless with her decisions. Well, she still kinda does, as we see in Season 2, that there are some moments where she doesn't exactly think things through, resulting in some major consequences. So this would definitely result her in having to make some poor choices. Not completely poor choices, but sometimes she doesn't really think too much about the consequences that would lead to later on, and this series has been addressing that a lot. Now with the Hunter, he comes across as the iconic golden guard who's very filled with sass and has no regards. But he's not without his redeemable qualities. Sometimes he does try to be fair with others, as well as try to come up with reasonable negotiations, as well as being a voice of reason. But Luz also describes him as a sad bad boy, which I think she only said that out of affection for him and some sympathy. And it's understandable why. You could see the bags under his eyes and what the hell he's been through, especially when you have a look at his relationship with Bellows. It's something close to that of a nightmare. You don't know what's going to happen to him, and even after Eclipse Lake, with the plans for the Titan, I'm afraid I'm starting to fear the worst for Hunter at this point. Oh boy. So in the hunting palisman, Luz kind of leans in, almost fascinated by his face, as well as it looked like she was ready to kiss him before we had the major slap scene. Of course, they come off as siblings right at that moment, always trying to talk like they're brothers and sisters, getting annoyed with each other, sometimes teasing each other, getting to their faces. And yeah, I could sort of see that as being siblings, but oh gee, I wonder what sounds familiar. Oh yes, Avatar! Avatar was known to have this brother and sister relationship between Aang and Katara that turned into something romantic. And of course, when Shrek and Fiona first started, Fiona was in for a rude awakening. So here's how I feel like could be the positives about their relationship. The more that Hunter spends time with Luz, the more he'll start to become realizing of how he's being affected negatively by Emperor Velos. The more he's exposed to more positive relationships with her, he may start to feel genuine love and maybe even start to tell the difference between false and genuine love. And of course, make him have a stronger relationship with his palisman. If Luz is known for one thing, it's making a very great outcome and changing people for the better. And this case with Hunter, he just needs something to make him realize of his unhealthy situation, as well as in turn Hunter becoming a very positive experience for Luz. And what I mean is, when I mentioned earlier that Luz doesn't think things through, I feel like in a lot of ways Luz can able to have more insight of what she wants to do and what course of action to take when Hunter becomes a little bit more part of her life, trying to help her focus on what she needs to do next, as well as trying to get a bigger idea of a picture, even though she has that capability. And this is where I feel like in some ways this relationship would make sense. I'm getting there! Anyway, with Luz and Amity, they definitely seem to have a strong relationship, and I don't think it's gonna go away anytime soon. Luz definitely cares about Amity up to the point where they both want to protect each other. And when Hunter comes into the picture and sees how their relationship is, I'm pretty sure it's gonna still remain unshakable even when Hunter is redeemed. However, after all the events in Eclipse Lake, Amity may not be exactly very warm towards him, especially because of a threat he did. So she'll still be a little guarded, but she does understand of where he's coming from, as well as trying to get him to understand that he doesn't have to do this alone, which is also probably a bigger part that Amity's gonna play into the Hunter ship in more ways than one. Now, these two aren't going to be lovey-dovey, that's for sure, but they'll definitely be good pals in the long run, a given time, mostly because they do have two things in common. They both know what it's like to go through hard relationships and expectations, as well as their love for Luz.
Dragon, and next time you come up with a theory, give us a fair warning.
Oh, crap.
Because we've just started.